Good evening. Welcome to Necro Thursday, which is the day that the Necromaniacs Horror Podcast drops. How's it going, Mike?
It's going good. Good to be back after a bit of a break with all you fine people. It is, I don't know, Real Feel 12 here in New York City, Mike. I don't know what the real feel is in Jersey, but it is a cold-ass mid-February day.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal out. Today was very, very cold. So that's all I got to say about that.
You know, the groundhog, I guess, told us 6 more weeks of winter, and well, we're getting 6 more weeks of winter. I think we're getting like more snow this week too. But you know what? It's nice to have a winter after 3 years, maybe even 4 years of like no winter, huh?
Definitely. And, like I said, winter is definitely here. I'm wearing layers, like three layers on. I've got a t-shirt, a hoodie, and a flannel.
Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah. Yep.
See, I live in 100-year-old apartment building, so the heat is like pumping every day. So I just have my long sleeve autopsy shirt on, Mike, and I'm good.
Yeah. Now you got steam heating, I imagine. There's no way in the old buildings, it's hard to control that stuff. So
yes, yeah.
Down here in my office, I have a big glass door. So there's a lot of conductivity. There's a lot of heat that goes out that big glass door. So it's a little drafty down here in my office.
Nice. I mean, I don't know. I love my summer, don't get me wrong, but for some reason I'm not like winter hating this season because I do like the snow. I like it. Yeah.
Oh no, I dig the cold winter, man. I like the cold more than I like the heat actually. And I think I was telling you before that I have my back went out. I had some family stuff to deal with. So it has to be attributed to maybe the stress or whatever. But then when I got home, my back just like seized up. So I haven't really been doing a whole lot of physical training or anything except for doing these walks in the freezing cold with my 30-pound weighted vest to kind of get my back, back into sort of loosen it up and stuff. So I've been out there in the true north weather, man. Like listening to Dark Throne and Burzum and stuff like that. It's like going these like 2-mile walks. So it's pretty cool.
Nice, man. Going hardcore there. Very cool. Yeah, I like when the snowstorms kick in. I like to put on a little Immortal, Blizzard Beasts, Battles of the North. Those are my snowstorm records. But pretty much any black metal of that variety you can't go wrong with,
Since we're talking about classic black metal, you got tickets for Emperor?
I do not actually. I saw them last time around at King's Theater, but as of now, I do not. I haven't been buying too many advance tickets because of my job situation.
Dude, totally understood, man.
Yeah. There's a good couple of shows I really want to go to in 2025, and hopefully I will get to go to them. As a matter of fact, Primordial, Mr. Hill, is playing at TVI at the end of March, and I'm gonna hell or high water. I'm gonna go to that. So
definitely,
yeah, that's the only show they're doing like 2 or 3 shows. It's kind of weird in like the Northeast. So I want to go to that.
I've only seen them at Maryland Death Fest a number of years ago. So so seeing them in a small room like that would be awesome.
Yeah. So that I really want to get to. I missed Incantation played last week with Decapitated and like 2 other bands I didn't really care about. I only kind of wanted to see Incantation because they were doing the whole second album front to back, Mortal Throne of Nazarene, for the 30th anniversary.
Yeah.
But I did miss that, unfortunately. Hey, I saw them when the record came out in front of about 25 people at the Wetlands. So at least totally. I have that memory in my head. And it's funny, I a while ago I posted the flyer for that show, and Craig Pillard brought up, that was my last show with the band for the first time.
Damn.
He quit the band after that show in '94. So that's where things were in black metal in New York City, black metal, in death metal, for certain bands. back then. Of course, Incantation demand a couple of 100 people now in New York City, but
Oh yeah.
in '94, like if you weren't your Morbid Angels, your Deicide, Carcass, Napalm Death, you know what I'm saying? Like top of the heap, you weren't really drawing that many people in the early '90s, and that's something a lot of people I feel like either forget or don't
Yeah.
recall. But it was, the big bands did well, and everybody else was like kind of a crapshoot back then. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like in mid '90s, death metal was definitely back in the underground, except for the bands
Mm,
that you mentioned, like the big, like Cannibal Corpse, Morbid Angel, and
right. Mhm.
but even like I would say even like late '90s into early 2000s, even a band like Napalm Death would have to support somebody. There was that period of
Mhm.
time too. Remember where like you might see like Napalm Death opening for one of these like whack bands like Bring Me the Horizon or something like
Right,
that, like
or like
these
something, yeah,
metalcore bands.
a four name band, right? Like,
Yeah, you would
four,
see that
right.
and you would be like, what the hell's going on? Like this band
Hmm.
sucks. And like Bring Me the Horizon, like a piece of shit band like that would have like Napalm Death opening for them.
Yeah, there was that period, and then thankfully by like the mid O's, and I think a lot of the classic bands just all just kind of upped their ante, and their popularity just kind of came back big. And then you had the bands that were smaller, your Morticians, your Immolations, your Incantations are now successful headliners themselves. So it's like things
Oh,
things definitely took a better turn, huh?
I want to feel like Mortician's playing at Dingbats out here in Jersey soon.
I think they are actually. Yeah,
Yeah, I got to
you
go
should
to
go
that.
see that. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
It's always fun.
And so I got Emperor tickets. Like I went to that show when they played at Kings last time, but
Mhm.
Tina wanted to see Emperor after she's never seen them, and I know that theater is a great venue to see a band like that play.
Oh yeah, it's awesome. I've seen, King Diamond there, Merciful Fate there, Emperor, Love and Rockets. Yeah, me and Stella went there a bunch the other years. This is
Yeah,
Mercy, it was like this whole string of shows happening there that I went to, which was a lot of fun. But yeah, awesome place to see a show in Brooklyn.
yeah. There's a bunch of stuff coming up. Of course, we've got Mayhem coming back again as part of
Yep.
like the Decibel tour with Mortis opening for them.
Yeah, yeah. I want to go to that. That's at a venue that I don't really like in Queens, the Knockdown Center, whatever
Oh,
it's
that's where
called.
it's supposed. That was the first, yeah, last
Yeah.
year when they canceled. Okay, all right. I
Mm.
haven't been there yet.
Yeah, it's very big. I believe so. It should be cool though. I mean, Mayhem's always great live.
Yeah, I
But
caught Mortis out at Dingbats actually. Mortis, when he was on that tour at the end, like last year.
how was
And
that?
it was fucking cool, man. It was like all instrumental stuff he did. Real
Mhm.
dirgy, atmospheric stuff, man. It was cool.
I saw him live during his more controversial era, that like Earache debut, that
Right.
like early O's or late '90s record that was kind of Nine Inch Nailsy era
Yeah.
motifs, and that
Hmm.
was interesting.
Yeah.
um, and I might have seen him one more time after that, but I definitely saw him in that era. I don't think I've seen the true Dungeon Synth first three records kind of era Mortis, which was the set I believe you saw. So that must have been
Yeah,
great.
that's what he was playing. And it was kind of cool. It was like during the week. So I remember like, I was home early from the show. It was like a
Mhm.
quick like 20-minute drive up to Dingbats. I got there just before Mortis played. Ran into some
Mhm.
friends. I was home before midnight, so it was good.
Huh, that is great.
Yeah.
But other than that, on the music front, I've been listening to that band Savage Master a lot with the girl singer. They're on Shadow Kingdom Records, which is that like Hell's Headbangers subsidiary. I don't know if
I
you've
keep hearing
ever heard
about
of them.
I keep hearing about that band. I just haven't checked them out.
Yeah, they're really cool. They got a girl singer. They have like this is album number 5 actually. They're from Louisville, Kentucky.
Oh, cool.
Really cool.
Yeah. Got friends down there.
Yeah, yeah. If you're into like Sereth Ungol or even like Old Priest or like Merciful Fate, just kind of picture that with like a girl singer with a really good voice. And yeah, they're a lot of fun.
That could be cool. What immediately comes to mind is Sanhedrin, which is
Yes. Hmm.
Jeremy's band, who was formerly in Black Anvil. His
Right.
band is very much in that vein.
Hmm. Yeah, if you like that, you may definitely like Savage Master. But Savage Master have a little bit of a shtick where there's the girl singer, but the four bandmates wear red hoods, red cloaks. So it's kind of cool, you know.
Okay.
They've been around a while though, since like 2013. So yeah, new record coming out called Dark and Dangerous at the end of March. So yeah, check them out, Savage
Oh yeah.
Master.
You want to give a rundown of the brothers before we get into other stuff we've been checking out?
Yes.
Uh,
Why don't you kick us off on a Monday, Mr.
all
Hill?
right, man. So every other Monday, we've got Horrorwolf 666 brought to you by Brandon Legion. And that's mostly interviews, with filmmakers, all that sort of stuff, actors. Occasionally, one of us will be on there. Related information. I'm in a band with Brandon called
Mhm.
Abraxas Horn. So it's
That's
me,
right.
Brandon, and Matt Prizzo, the great Matt Prizzo from Down Under. And just to let everyone know, that our newest record is on all the streamers right now, so you can listen to it on Spotify, Apple, wherever you stream your music. You can find the new Abraxas Horn record. So that's pretty cool information right there.
Yes, pick that up. Hmm. On Tuesday, it's the greatest metal podcast in the land. Jackie Smith's own Into the Necrosphere, bringing all of you the very best in death, black, thrash, doom, heavy metal news with some great interviews as well. He's always crushing it. He is back, of course, after his sabbatical. He came back a couple of weeks ago for the new year. Welcome back, sir. And yeah, make sure you subscribe to Into the Necrosphere. What about Wednesday?
Wednesday is first day of double shots. We've got Everything Went Black, which is my long running podcast, which you can find a lot of different types of stuff on there. It's
Mhm.
also the day when Cheyenne drops Iblis Manifestations, and that's a tremendous podcast. Similar to Jackie, he's drawing from the death, black metal, that
Mhm.
whole realm, and he's got great interviews. Cheyenne's an interesting guy, and Trivax is a great band, so definitely check that out on Wednesdays.
Yeah, Trivax is going to have their Osmos LP coming out this year. Looking forward to checking that
Absolutely,
out.
man.
Yeah,
Definitely.
on the great Osmos Productions. Thursday, folks, while you're listening to it now, the great and powerful Necromaniacs podcast, your favorite horror podcast in the world. You have Mr. Mike Hill, myself, Mr. Scandato, also with the name Michael, and of course, Jeff Kashid. Make sure if you're listening for the first time, you subscribe to our podcast as well. On Friday, folks, you have my brother from our actual mother, Mr. John Draper with Spitball Media. Excellent podcast with his co-host Shaheen and B. Show Brian. Shaheen is from Philly, so last week's episode was a lot of fun because they talked about the Philadelphia win for the Super Bowl and all the antics that took place in
Dude,
Philadelphia. So yeah,
Philly
insane.
keeps it real, man. They keep it real
Oh
down
my
there.
God.
When
I,
something
I,
good when something good happens in that city, they destroy the city. They burn everything and
yep,
overturn cop cars and
yep.
smash windows. So yeah.
Yeah, if you want a very good live and in-person take on Philadelphia's winning exploits, you should listen to last week's Spitball Media episode. It was a lot of fun. It was very funny. What about, well, Saturday is a day off, isn't it? Tell me about Sunday, Mr. Hill.
Sunday, the sinister minister Carl Hikara returns with Soul Knox. He also posts episodes on Thursdays. So if you're into darkness, the occult, the macabre, all that sort of stuff, Satanism, Carl's your man for that on Soul Knox. And we are also continuing with much power, our Darkness Weaves collaboration, which is an exploration of the work of Carl Edward Wagner, a dark fantasy, weird fiction, and sword and sorcery author. And right now we're starting novel 2, The Dark Crusade. The first installment of that just debuts next week on Everything Went Black, and then we're continuing that together on Soul Knox. We're switching month to month which show posts those episodes.
Excellent. And there you have it, folks. The Horsemen of the Podcasting Apocalypse. Make sure you are subscribed to all of our wonderful shows, right, Mr. Hill?
That's right. Have you been watching anything cool? It's been a while since you and I spoke about this, actually.
Yeah,
so yeah, I'm sure.
I know. I gotta say, I've been on my fantasy kick, and no, not that kind of fantasy. Get your mind out of the gutter. I mean the sword and sorcery fantasy kick. Yes.
Excellent.
I watched after I watched Fire and Ice, which I enjoyed the hell out of course,
outstanding
animated film. I watched The Sword and the Sorcerer for the first time in ages, like decades. That movie is buck wild. I really enjoyed it. And then I watched another really buck wild movie that, again, I don't think I'd seen since a first VHS viewing. And that is, of course, the movie Barbarians.
Oh,
do you remember
Italian.
Barbarians?
That's an Italian film. Yeah.
With the two weightlifting brothers. Hold on. I need to pull up exactly what year it's from. That movie is from 1987. Yeah, a lot of fun, man. These films, look, they're not The Godfather, okay? But Barbarians was directed by Ruggero Deodato.
Yeah, man.
And it's, of course, starred the Barbarian brothers, Peter and David Paul. And, of course, they have the great Richard Lynch in them, who is, of course, also the villain in The Sword and the Sorcerer as well. Richard Lynch, I mean, again, I think a lot of people know exactly who I'm talking about. He had that look. He was the bad guy in about 8 million movies, would you say, Mike Hill?
That's such a great gig, man, to be the bad guy. You know, that's so cool.
Like everything. Yeah. He's even in a movie we covered way back here on the podcast, God Told Me To.
Yep.
Yeah. He's in a million things from the 70s until about the early 90s. Rob Zombie even gave him a little screen time in the 2007 Halloween. Really amazing character actor who passed back in 2012. Brooklyn, New York's own Richard Lynch. Mike, did you know that?
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
How about that?
Yeah.
So yeah, been watching movies like that. Not sure what's next on the docket. I may just plunk down the $4 and rewatch Excalibur again. Excalibur is available on streamers, but it's like an add-on on the streamers. It's not like on any of the streamers. Isn't that annoying?
Yeah, that's a classic, man. I have that on Blu-ray. That's a great movie. I saw that in a movie theater with my dad like years and years ago. Yeah.
I mean, if any movie should just be on something, it should be Excalibur. I would watch Excalibur on a monthly basis if it was on a streamer, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I've been watching.
I've been watching a lot of stuff. Have you seen The Bay?
No, but I've heard that I should check it out.
It's I don't think it lives up to the hype, but I saw it. It was pretty good. That was something I checked out. It was like a reality. It's like a found footage style film about like pollution and these like weird fish creatures. It's kind of cool, you know. Severance, the new season of Severance is awesome. I'm a little bit behind on that right now, but I've been watching that. Now, straight from one of the callers, actually, recommendation, Valerie and Her Week of Wonders. I watched that, which is on the Criterion channel right now. So yeah, that's a really good movie, very artsy. You know, foreign film, vampires, very cool, excellent imagery. You know, I really enjoyed that one. I want to say Mike from Pennsylvania recommended that one.
What year is that from?
The 70s.
70s. Okay. Yeah, most
Yeah.
of Mike's recommendations are squarely in that decade.
Yeah. And that's probably, I think you and I both agree the 70s was the greatest decade for film in general.
Yeah. I mean, and of course, uh tonight's film will also kind of
Yeah.
cement that, as of course our last get together with Don't Look Now was another banger, and of course The Changeling, another banger.
Yeah.
But yeah, which kind of almost walks us into the door of tonight's episode, huh?
Well, let's do our caller first. So
Okay.
we got Tim from Quakertown, new caller. So
Hmm.
welcome aboard, Tim. Good to hear from you.
Yes.
This is Tim Lawn from Quakertown, Pennsylvania. I want to suggest a film for your discussion on your program with the other fellas. Bride of Boogity. Please check out Bride of Boogity.
Of that film. Sounds interesting though. I mean, I'm definitely gonna look into checking that out because, as you can tell, if we get these recommendations, I typically try to watch a lot of this stuff. You know what I mean? It's
Hmm.
it's always good coming from you guys to get recommended these films.
Um, it has a Wikipedia page entry, so perhaps I will do some further digging. Sounds interesting, though.
Yeah, I also, I try to watch a lot of these films that get recommended to us. We end up covering a lot of them too, but I at least try to watch a lot of the stuff that's being recommended to us.
Hmm. Yeah, no, definitely. Thanks again for calling in.
Yeah. So it's funny because I kind of feel like there's a couple of reasons why I'm excited about doing this movie.
Mhm.
Number one is that it stars Donald Sutherland, who I feel like is a Necromaniacs approved favorite.
Yes.
Yeah. And you touched on this earlier, and I was thinking the same things as I watched
Mhm.
this because this was our both of us for both of us. This is our first time watching this movie.
Right. Mhm.
Yeah, and you touched on this, and as I mentioned, I was thinking exactly the same thing when I got like maybe midway through this movie that this is the first true American giallo film.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was filmed in like late 70, early 71. It comes out in June of 1971, June 23rd, which literally plops it right at the beginning of the Giallo explosion. Because, okay, honestly, I'm just gonna no, slide to Mario Bava. I'm really starting the Giallo's true explosion with 1970s Bird with Crystal Plumage by, of course, Dario Argento, because it's really after that movie, especially in Italy and in Spain and across Europe, that the hundreds of giallos start getting made. However, though, what's really interesting is like the timing of how this movie and that movie are very close together.
Yeah,
Now, Bird of Crystal Plumage did have a U.S. run in 1970. And Klute comes out in 71. Again, probably shot in late 70, early 71, if it came out in June of 71. Um, there are a lot of music cues in Klute with that female la 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 kind of
yep,
like voice,
yeah.
which is literally the same as Morricone's score in Bird with Crystal Plumage. Now, we can't be the only people to recognize this who like these kind of movies, right?
Yeah, I think you're onto something with that too. The storyline, the setting,
Mm-hmm.
what kind of like propels the plot forward, the payoff, all that stuff is 100% Italian giallo.
Yeah, yeah. And
However,
how about that beginning? And the
yeah,
beginning was like almost like it reminded me of the deep red Tenebrae beginning.
yeah,
And it's weird, right? Like, and again, it's an American director, it's an American film. Um, the only thing I could think of is that, let's be honest, both Argento, um, apparently, and Alan Pakula were inspired by Hitchcock. So
yeah. So
it's a
maybe it's
common
a
thread.
happy coincidence, but I don't know. There's the other thing too is like nowadays everything like information gets transmitted instantaneously. You know what I mean? So it's
Mhm.
like, a film comes out and the entire world sees it. Back then in the 70s, obviously things moved slower, but Alan Pakula is in the film industry, right? So maybe he was aware of showings of this and of Bird with the Crystal Plumage, and was a little bit more hip to that vibe. Maybe he's traveled in Europe. He's familiar with the Italian filmmakers over
Who
there,
knows?
and it
Yeah. I
was on
mean,
his radar to begin with, and he checked it out and was influenced by it. That could be a likely story too.
could be. I mean, it's funny, with God bless the internet. AI had something to say about Klute and Giallo. Okay, and I'm going to read it because it's interesting. It says, while Klute is not strictly considered a classic Giallo film, it shares many of the same stylistic elements, and particularly the cinematography and the
Yeah,
score,
score
which
definitely.
lead many to classify it as American Giallo due to its suspenseful, mystery-driven plot, focus on female protagonist and danger, connecting it to the Giallo genre makes it a perfect fit. Other elements include stylish visual aesthetic, yes, especially at beginning, the credit sequence and that opening model sequence, again, right out of like mid 70s Italian Giallo. Mysterious killer, strong focus on female protagonist vulnerability, all common Giallo tropes. I mean, I think that kind of hits it right on the head, no?
Yeah, and even Clute, Donald Sutherland's character is kind of like would be right at home in like an Italian film like that. Just his whole character.
He really would. And
Yeah.
and how about the fact that okay, the movie's called Clute. The movie ended. I loved this movie, but ultimately, you learn very little about Clute, huh? About John Clute.
Exactly. He's a mystery, and he's like this
Yes.
super straight, cop character,
Hmm.
and he's never really developed, you know.
No, not at all, actually. Whereas, Jane Fonda, who of course plays Bree Daniels, is fucking amazing in this movie. Okay,
Yeah.
acts her ass off, wins the Academy Award for
Oh,
Best Actress for this movie. Yes, she did actually that year. Um, and it's funny. Apparently, Roger Ebert said, he gave it a 3.5 out of 4 and said, "Why wasn't this movie called Brie? Because it's her movie. It's Jane Fonda's movie. It's all about her character. But in a way, it's kind of cool. Look, in a way, it's kind of cool that's called Klute. Klute is an interesting, weird name. I mean, it's his last name, of course, the great Donald Sutherland, his character's last name, and he's the one trying to solve the mystery for the most part. But it is her movie, right? I mean, I think it is.
I think so, 100%.
I mean, this is Jane Fonda's movie in many aspects. Yes.
Yeah. Let's do some of the technical stuff, just get that out of the way. So, written and directed by Alan Pakula, who's also known for his Paranoia trilogy, in which Klute is part of that. And of course, that
Mhm.
includes Klute, The Parallax View, and All the President's Men. Okay.
Yes.
And I haven't seen any of those. So,
Me
um,
neither. And I absolutely, after seeing Clute, will be watching both of those movies 100%.
yeah. Released June 23rd, 1971. It's 114 minutes long. So
Mhm.
it's for that time period a little bit on the longer side.
Yeah, it is a
And
long movie.
yeah, it's got a great cast. Of course, we've got Jane Fonda as Bree Daniels, the great Donald Sutherland as John Clute, Charles Cioffi as Peter Cable, Roy Scheider playing a
Mm.
supporting role in this movie as Frank Legorin, Dorothy Tristan as Arlen Page, and then just some, we got some other Rita Gam as Trina, Vivian Nathan as
Mhm.
Bree's psychiatrist, and Nathan George as Trask. So really good, solid cast in this one.
Mr. Hill, how about one of the greatest unheralded moments in the movie is a pre All in the Family Gene Stapleton in the movie as the secretary at the end of the film. Did
Oh
you catch that?
fuck, that went right by me, man.
Yes. She is the secretary in that factory, that ending scene where she's talking to the secretary. Yeah, that's Edith Bunker, bro. That's a younger Jean Stapleton.
Damn.
And somewhere in this movie, as an uncredited extra, is Sylvester Stallone. How about that?
Oh wow, that's cool. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
But yeah, if you watch it again in that last 20 minutes or so of the movie, yep, that is Edith Bunker. And it's funny, at the very beginning, as I was watching that fantastic, extremely Argento credit sequence at the beginning of the movie, I saw the name Jean Stapleton, and I went, "Oh shit, Edith is in this movie," and she was not in it till the very end. So I got a kick out of that.
Yes. Yeah. So this movie opens in Pennsylvania, and it's sort of starts off with the disappearance after this dinner scene. There's the disappearance of Tom Gruneman, who works for this chemical company, and so there's some evidence that's been left behind. And Gruneman works for this guy named Peter Cable, who owns the company, or is an executive at another executive or the owner or something like that at the chemical company.
Chemical company, yep.
Yeah, and they hire John Klute, who's a family friend as well as a detective, to investigate the disappearance. So some of the things we learn is that there's these very, very dirty letters that were found in Gruneman's desk at work, sort of hinting that he might have been stepping outside of his marriage.
Right.
You know?
Exactly. Yeah. I wanted to say something about that very cool opening sequence that I kind of watched twice. Again, it's very like stylistic, I thought, for like 1971, where it's like, Donald Sutherland is there. It's like it's a dinner scene, and Sutherland is good friends with the Tom Gruneman guy, and Tom Gruneman is there with his wife, and they're just kind of chatty and blah blah blah. And like momentarily, right after it, it cuts to a scene where you see Donald Sutherland again, only in his uniform. Right? Did you notice that?
Yep.
Like at the beginning, he's wearing like a suit. Like everybody's wearing suits. It's
Street clothes. Yeah.
dinner. Right. Exactly. And I thought that was a very cool kind of juxtaposition from scene to scene, where it's like that guy at the head of the table who looked like this nice, normal, early 70s guy. And all of a sudden, Klute is there at the table with a cop and the wife.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I thought that was a very cool.
Yeah. You learn so much exposition without any dialogue at all.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like you learn who the main people are, like, right. Without any, there's no, it's a total economy of words. There's no words. You just, these scenes tell you who's who. You even learn that Klute is a cop. Because
like you didn't know that at first, right? Not at the very beginning. Other interesting thing of note is that Tom Gruneman is essentially never seen again in this film. I thought that was awesome.
You don't even really he literally disappears.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's, man, this fucking movie. Anyway, you could see, listeners, Mike and I enjoyed the film, and we really hope you do too. But yeah, I thought it was so cool that he's literally gone, and that is a part of the mystery of the film. And some months pass, as you said, and they have found no trace of him, which is really weird to find no trace of a man that had an important job and friends and family and and a wife and people who knew him. There's no trace of him, but they found these letters. So again, it builds this very interesting plot right out of the gate, I thought, which was great.
Yeah, you don't even really know what the letters say. They just say that they're very dirty. They're very transgressive. So you're up to your imagination. Sort of, it's up to you to fill in the blanks on what they actually wrote in the letters.
Yeah. Now, real quick, I know it's an old film, but I feel like it's an old film that a lot of people have not seen. Are we committed to going the full Monty with this movie?
You know what? Let's kind of, we don't have to go into every plot beat, but like I think that we should, maybe let's not reveal the whole
Okay,
thing.
yeah.
'Cause I
So,
really, really would like people to watch this movie and let us, let us know what you think of it. You know what I mean?
yeah, I feel like maybe not even every Jala person has seen this movie. I mean, they may have seen literally more of the European ones than they have of the American ones at this point. And since this one is 50 plus years old, there's a very good chance even like a younger or somewhat younger listener has definitely not seen it. So we are actually not spoiling the full ending of this movie.
Yeah, this
Um,
movie definitely doesn't show up on a lot of people's radar for sure.
no, it doesn't. It doesn't. Um, One of Gruneman's, co-workers, Peter Cable, uh, hires John Klute basically as like a private detective, even though he is an actual policeman in Pennsylvania, to go into Manhattan and try to find Tom Gruneman. And it's great. He asks him if he's ever done detective work. No, which is weird. He's a cop. And then he asks if he's ever been to New York City, and he goes no, which is okay. I mean, I feel like they're in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, so that might track. But he's into it. Gruneman apparently was one of his best friends. So, yeah.
Which kind of says a lot, if you think about it, similar to the Italian films. You get the sense that Cable selected Klute because he's has a very low probability
Mm.
of actually finding Gruneman.
Right. Now, the other thing is this, another post-movie thought. Do you think Clute knew something was up? Because if Cable was one of his best friends, do you think he thought something was not right about this whole thing right out of the gate, or it took more investigation to realize that things were not right about this story?
That's a really good question because Sutherland plays this character with this. He's like behind this impenetrable wall for the most part. You know what I mean?
Mm,
And
yeah.
we know that Donald Sutherland, is a very expressive actor. We've seen him in many different roles. Just
Mm,
recently we saw him play a very emotive character. So the fact that he's so impenetrable is definitely a direction that they want to portray the character in that way. So it's hard to say, but I would have to think that since Gruneman is one of his best friends, he must know his true character. And the fact that
yeah.
he had some mistress that's into all this kinky stuff they talked about in the letter probably doesn't track well with him. And that might even be why he's motivated to take this on, this task to
Right.
in some ways find out what happened to Gruneman, and maybe with the hope that it kind of clears his name a little bit.
Yeah, very possible. Um, so yeah, all the letters are addressed to Brie Daniels. Brie Daniels is, of course, played by Jane Fonda. Clute manages to rent an apartment in Brie's building somewhere in Manhattan there. Um, and when he tries to kind of question her, she kind of like blows him off because aside from being a call girl, Brie is also trying to become an actress. We see her going on like different auditions and modeling gigs and trying to do like quote unquote straight work. But she is also a working prostitute as well. Again, apparently in my research for the film, I learned that Jane Fonda spent like over a week with like real prostitutes and madams in Manhattan for the role. And yeah, I just thought she kind of knocked it out of the park here.
Yeah, she was good, definitely. And the other thing to keep in mind too that worth mentioning actually is that she is a freelance prostitute. She doesn't have a
Yeah.
pimp, or she
No.
doesn't have a
Mhm.
pimp anymore. At one point, she
Right.
did have a pimp who we learn about him later on in the story here.
Yeah, we also see her going to her psychiatrist at a few different points in the film, and we learn that she's got some problems. She feels that she's her life is empty, and she has paranoia, and she has trouble sleeping. Um, Flute does manage to finally get into her apartment and speak with her after some reluctance. And again, very interestingly enough, she's shown the picture of Gruneman, the man that Clute is looking for, and she's like, I've never seen that man before in my life.
Right.
which again is interesting.
Yeah.
But she did manage to tell Klute about 2 years prior, she was beaten up by a man that was not Gruneman, who was a bit older than Gruneman, and definitely not the man in the photo. Yeah, it's kind of like the first kind of question mark, huh?
Exactly. Yeah. So the other thing too I wanted to mention about this film, a lot of there's a lot of surveillance and like recordings that happen in
Yeah.
this film, and a lot of dialogue and conversation. So another movie that came to mind while watching this was the film called The Conversation by Francis Ford Coppola.
Yes, which has Roy Scheider. Yes.
As Roy Scheider, and also our boy Gene Hackman is in it too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So there's some it touched that too. And that's one of my favorite movies of all time. I love that movie.
Well, this is also in the time of Watergate, and 70s had a lot of like paranoia going on in the
Yep.
movies, right? Like it was just kind of its time. But again, aside from that, this movie adds in that, I will say, thriller horror element. It's got, you know what I'm saying? There's interesting, it's a very layered movie. There's a kind of a lot going on, but at the same time, there's not even a ton of characters, you know?
Yeah.
There's even a scene, well, again, while we're not going to really give it away, where of a guy kind of watching them. And now that I think about it, you basically know who it is if you're really paying attention, if you remember that scene of the guy's head, kind of.
Yep.
Because of the way his hair is, let's just say.
Yeah.
But, you know, they kind of start their own investigation of sorts. And at this point, Bree takes her to go meet our buddy Roy Scheider, who is a pimp in an apartment, right?
Yeah. Now the connection though between the John that beat up Bree is Jane McKenna, like another prostitute,
another friend. Yes.
Yeah. She apparently killed herself.
Yeah. She was, you know, like I said, she tells Klute she was beat by a John 2 years earlier, and they, you know, she takes him to Frank Legorin, who is Roy Scheider, who also managed this Jane McKenna, who was the one who referred the abusive client to Brenna. But of course, as you just said, we learned that McKenna has committed suicide.
Yep.
And there's a third prostitute also connected to this named Arlen Page, who had a run-in with this dude as well, and became a drug addict and has disappeared as a result of this. So this mysterious customer has done quite a bit of damage from 2 years.
So I wanted to mention those because it's like the kind of like tentacles that reach out from this guy, and it touches these different women. So, and that's how we connect Frank Legorin to Bree, and then now Klute is kind of bracing him up for information, and Klute's like the straight John. He's like the Dale Cooper of like this
he is
this operation.
But again, I got to be figuring at this point, even at this point, which is maybe halfway into the movie, Klute is like, there is no way my friend Tom Gruneman did any of this. But again, we don't know that as a viewer just yet. You know, I don't know. I feel like he's an intelligent guy, or at least he feels that something is amiss here. Of course, the more that Klute and Bree hang out, they develop a bit of a romance. They, sleep together. And it's funny, Bree divulges to her therapist in another therapy scene that she wishes that she didn't like him because, she's more in control of herself when she's turning tricks, that she feels that Klute is kind of like in control when they're together, which kind of makes sense. He's that kind of guy, but not controlling, but a man who at least is completely in control of his own life as opposed to Bree, right?
Yeah, that's kind of like, she's developing feelings for him too. And that's, the vulnerability she feels around him is what, sort of is alarming to her because, she is pretty much blocked off from her true emotions. You know what I mean? She talks about like, there's a scene after they have sex where he's like kind of just like concerned looking, and she's like, "Oh, what's wrong? I never have an orgasm with Johns." Like after she has sex
Right. Yeah.
with
She said
Klute.
some weird shit to him because I think
Yeah,
she liked
like
him.
off-putting stuff, and that's obviously she's saying that because she wants to distance herself from him and because he's feeling something.
Yeah. So they managed to find Arlen Page, who is the blonde prostitute who's junkie with her boyfriend. And once again, she is shown the picture by Klute of Gruneman, and she goes, "No, that's not him. It was an older guy." And it's like, uh-oh,
Yeah,
there's something wrong here. Yeah, his friend didn't do any of this, yet his friend is still missing and nowhere to be found. And then sadly, after she's shown that picture, cut to another scene, Paige's body is found dead in a river, and Klute concludes that the suicides of these two prostitutes are obviously connected and that this mysterious client was using Tom Gruneman's name.
yeah.
He also thinks that the client has probably killed Gruneman and that Bree is, of course, next.
But
All very logical, right?
exactly, but also you never see Gruneman's body though. Like we say in the beginning
No.
of this talk, we were talking about how he just disappears. He literally disappears. You don't. It's never confirmed that he was actually murdered, even though it is likely that he was killed.
Yeah, and I think that helps make the movie even cooler.
Yeah,
There's that scene at the very end where the death of Arlen that was recorded is played back in front of Jane Fonda to fuck her up. I almost thought we would hear something about Gruneman's death in that scene, but alas, again, we do not hear that anything about his death in that playback of the tape. Now, here's where things get tricky because we did promise we weren't going to reveal the killer. The director decides to reveal the killer right around this time in the movie, though, huh, Mike?
yeah. So we're gonna sidestep that part,
Mm-hmm.
definitely. But it's pretty clear, even though Sutherland plays Klute as this completely emotionless character, that he doesn't believe Gruneman did the murders. There's no evidence pointing him in that direction. And there's more to the story than what's being let on. And that, like you said too, that Gruneman is most likely dead. So that's pretty much where we're at. Yeah.
Yes. Um, Apparently, there is a black book that I believe the first woman who killed herself was McKenna that reveals the identity of the killer. Um, and they're trying to find it. And then, Klute mentions to Cable that he needs money to get this black book. And of course, Cable's like, okay, do what you got to do, blah, blah, blah. Um, and, that would essentially solve the case. But the thing is, the killer is on the hunt right now, and the killer manages to follow Bree into one of her clients' offices, where I mentioned earlier, an office where Edith Bunker works as a secretary. Um, and she manages to kind of end up in that building kind of after hours. And the killer, of course, does find her there. But again, this makes it very difficult to proceed further in a way because the end of the movie does kind of play out here in this office scene, Mike.
Yeah, that's pretty much the there's that wild scene with where Bree is like, kind of like I don't know if she's on drugs or drunk or whatever, but she's at that. There's all the music scene, where
Yeah,
they're
that's earlier on.
yeah,
It's funny. What I didn't mention when we got to see Arlen Page, who was strung out with her boyfriend, it really greatly affected Jane Fonda, like because I think she saw what her life could end up like or what she could be. So unfortunately, she herself ends up definitely doing heroin and ending up in a club and kind of getting all fucked up and making her way back home. And Klute kind of like nurses her back to sobriety in that very, interesting scene. Yeah.
yeah. And like I said before, there's a lot of voice recordings, a lot of conversation, and I always I like that element to these types of films from the 70s. Like there's a lot of like these kind of surveillance, weird, like voyeuristic things that go on. Like I was saying, this movie, The Conversation, to some extent, Abel Ferrara's Blackout, like they
Mhm.
all rely on recorded conversations to kind of propel the plot forward. And I found that really interesting and compelling about this movie.
Yeah, definitely. The ending now, once the quote mystery has been solved and the killer is revealed and the killer is dead, the movie ends with the scene of Bree in her vacant apartment with Klute in a voiceover conversation with her therapist, where she's very hesitant to surrender her life to a traditional relationship with Klute. That she would, go crazy if she turned it into a domestic. And then she says that she would really miss Klute if she left him. And then she jokes that you may never see me again. And then she's like, oh, no, actually, you may see me next week. And it kind of has that 70s-esque ending of them leaving an apartment, and then there's the empty apartment. But before that, rather interestingly enough, it also in kind of 70s, almost horror fashion, there's a phone call right as they're leaving.
Yeah.
But the phone call is, of course, not from a killer because the killer is no longer with us. It's from a client. And she actually does tell the client that she's leaving New York and will not be back, and her and Klute leave. Um, but it leaves you with that question mark about her life. Like, how long will she last in the quote straight world, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because like you don't really know what, you know, she actually makes a statement earlier about Klute, to
Mm-hmm.
Klute, about his visit to New York City and how yeah, she's like, oh, what do you think of, of the wild people that live in the city or whatever, something along those lines. So, she's very much like an urban sort of city girl, so it's kind of a big jump to go from that to like living out in like wherever Pennsylvania, where,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, Erie, Pennsylvania or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, but again, it's just wow. It's a real powerhouse of a film, and it's funny. Just as I suspected, it actually began filming in December of '70 and finished filming in March of '71. So I was pretty much dead on as
Damn.
to when this thing was filmed and was released in June of '71. But man, I can't believe it took me so long to finally see this movie,
Yeah.
and both of us, honestly. Um, it's always been in the mix when you would maybe Google American Giallos, or if you read articles about American Giallos. Um, I mean, honestly, to me, if Dress to Kill is number one, this is clearly my number two. Honestly, after finally seeing it, and I see why it's kind of really so like important. Um, and I definitely see how Jane Fonda won the Academy Award for this movie. I mean, it's a very like for 50 and change years ago, it's a very brave and very like kind of gut wrenching, I think, for the time performance. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, that it's very frank in the way it portrays like prostitution and that sort of underbelly of New York City and all that. And it predates Taxi Driver, which is like the epitome,
Yes.
the sort of that's like the that's like what puts it on the map, like that type of film, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's a way ahead of its time. It's right up there with the Europeans when it comes to these types of crime thrillers.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean I'm surprised it took this long for me to see it. And yeah, I'm glad I did, especially, being such a huge fan of Donald Sutherland, I
Yeah.
definitely.
I mean, I could see how he was kind of like the it guy, man, in the early '70s. No, the entire '70s, he
Yeah,
was the
yeah,
it
pretty
guy.
much. Yeah, that whole
Honestly,
decade.
if we go to all the way to the end of the '70s with like one of our favorites again, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, it's
Yep.
like you could clearly see a master craftsman of acting, in my opinion. You know?
And I'm gonna say once again, man, Donald Sutherland, we got to do the um the forgotten Salem's Lot miniseries that Donald
Mm,
Sutherland is in
okay.
that came out in like what, like 2002 or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, man.
Dude,
Absolutely.
so good. And it's better than the film, the remake that they just did. It really is. It's a
Yeah, you're not
different,
the only person to say that, but
yeah.
a lot of people have said that. A lot of reviews have kind of have mentioned that. So I don't know. I think when that came out, it was just kind of again, maybe it should have come out later. Like, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I'm trying to
Yeah.
remember what was going on for horror at that time, and that post 9/11 time was
Yeah.
not actually super huge for horror
No, not at
in the
all.
year post 9/11. I don't think it was.
Yeah, not in
Um,
the US at least. You know, that's where a
no.
lot, like around that period of time as the French were gearing up with all the new
Yes,
French extremity and,
it was coming.
Japanese
Yeah,
films, things like that.
right.
Um,
Yeah.
but the what turned me off to watching that originally was like the Rob Lowe as as the main character, but I nothing against Rob Lowe, man. I don't know. There's something about the marketing of it turned me off to the film. And Rob Lowe looked like he was in like the makeup or something like that. Like the way that they show him in all of the the promotional material for that, like the posters. It looked like he was like this kind of emo, like Rob Lowe type of guy. But yeah, it's like it's quite good,
Mm. It's funny as I like to look at my reviews of the movies. I mean, this got a lot of great reviews, but oddly enough, the New York Times, a Roger Greenspun of the New York Times, had some negative things to say about the movie. The acting in Klute seems semi-improvisatory, and
Yeah.
in this, Jane Fonda, who is good at confessing, is generally successful. Everybody else merely talks a lot, except for Sutherland, who scarcely talks at all. A normally inventive actor, here he is given precisely the latitude to evoke a romantic figure with all the mysterious intensity of a youthful Calvin Coolidge. Man, that's a 1971 review. I kind of disagree here, obviously.
Yeah,
I
I don't
actually
agree
think,
with that at all.
yeah, I think that's the whole idea about
Yeah.
Sutherland in this
Yeah.
movie, and he's actually, I think, good at saying very little, and that does, to me, also take acting skill. No.
Yeah, totally. Like he had like that's the whole treatise of the film is the fact that they had this freedom to kind of like do some improv like that. And his character was the character he was given. That was the direction he was given. So as an actor, he follows his direction. So I don't have a problem with any of that stuff. This guy just thought he was going to watch another type of film, I think. You know what I mean?
Yeah, perhaps. But again, it is long. Movie is long, in my opinion, but I was not bored.
No.
There are lots of like ancillary characters and these cool other scenes in like seedy clubs and
Yeah.
interesting moments that propel the movie. I mean, honestly, again, like I said, if I would say like Dress to Kill is like my favorite American Giallo, I mean, after seeing this movie, this literally has propelled to like a number two. And in our Necro score, this is a 5.5 hard, man. I mean, geez, for me.
Yeah, I give it a 4.5, but it could be a 5 for me too,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
I almost thought you would give it a 5 as well. How about that?
Yeah, no, I mean I could easily be like convinced to make it a 5 out of 5, but yeah, it was great. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. And it's funny to see Roy Scheider as a sleazier guy, and of course, 4 years later, he would become, Mr. America with Jaws, in 1975.
Roy Scheider was great in the French Connection too, man. Well, the
Yeah,
French Connection, yeah.
maybe we could do some more Roy Scheider genre deep dives.
Yeah.
I mean, a movie we've talked about doing, or again, it's been a long 11 years. Did we ever actually do 52 pickup, or we
Oh, we
talked about
talked about it.
Okay,
And
so we
did
should
we
do
ever
it.
do the Blackout, the Abel Ferrara film, The Blackout? I feel like we did. I can't remember if we covered that or not.
We'd have to check the
I have to
record.
look back. I have to look back in the files
But
here.
yeah, 52 pickup is a Necro movie, and I think it would fare well with a nice deep dive review.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I have that. I have a
Snyder's
hard
the man.
copy of that. I got a hard copy of 52 Pickup. So
Yeah, me too. Me too. I mean, Marathon Man and French Connection and 52 Pickup and Jaws. He's another dude, man. Hell yeah. Oh, and there's also that movie from 1983, Blue Thunder, which is a cool movie.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that one either, actually.
Yeah. But yes. Oh, Malcolm McDowell's in Blue Thunder. Yeah, maybe we should fuck with that one. Another trip to the 70s that I really do hope our listeners appreciate, and I think they do. And if you have not seen Klute, we did not spoil it for you, so we'll pat ourselves on the back for that one, huh?
Yeah, it was tough, but I don't want to ruin it for anybody. So yeah, I'm not sure, where did I watch this? Did I rent this movie? I think I rented it on Apple or something like that.
Yeah, this is another one where it was on Amazon for $4, folks. This, I don't think it's a part of any of the streamers, but again, it is available on streamers.
Yeah.
It is 100% worth $4. I mean, you could
$4 is nothing.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
It's like that's the amount of money you would spend on a cup of coffee at Starbucks. So yeah,
that is correct. Yes. And I mean, from what I understand, a bottle of Pepsi is almost $3 in some stores. So,
wow.
Yeah. And I don't mean the big bottle. I mean like this, the smaller bottle, the 16-ounce bottle.
So yeah, that unacceptable. To be honest,
it is unacceptable.
Yeah.
But you should be drinking water anyway. Damn it! Don't drink that Pepsi. Drink some water.
Dude, I can't even remember the last time I had a Pepsi.
Yes, as I'm downing water right now.
Yeah.
But that wraps it up tonight for this week's Necromaniacs. It is good to be back. Good to chat with you, Mr. Hill.
Absolutely, man. And thanks for listening, everyone. And we'll talk to you guys next week.
See you next time.